This is Where We Live on Connecticut Public Radio. I'm Lucy Nalpathanchel, broadcasting remotely. Just a couple months ago, Connecticut State Colleges and Universities President Mark Ojakian announced that the 4 state universities will reopen their campuses for the fall semester. That means students will be welcomed back August 24th. Are you one of them, or do you teach at a state university? Are you ready to go back to campus? We want to hear from you today. 888-720-9677. That's 888-720-WMPR. You can also find us on Facebook and Twitter at Where We Live as we focus on the state higher ed system to hear how students, faculty, and staff are preparing for the reopening. Coming up, we'll talk to an administrator at one of the 12 community colleges, which are still slated to be consolidated. And this fall, first-time students will be able to go to a Connecticut community college for free. How will that work in a pandemic when state funds are already stretched? We'll hear from Dr. G. Duncan Harris, Chief Executive Officer of Capital Community College in Hartford. Again, that's coming up. Now, we did ask President Mark Ojakian to join today's show, but we were told he was not available. We wanted to start by hearing from some students. So joining us now on Zoom is Asma Rahimyar, who's an incoming senior at Southern Connecticut State University. Asma, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Also with us is Alex Rooney. He's an incoming junior at Eastern Connecticut State University. Alex, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be on.
I'll start with Asma. I understand that you were a commuter student at Southern Connecticut. And so when you hear that the university will be reopening for the fall semester, what does that mean for you as a commuter student?
Yeah, so of the many, I think, pros and cons of being online last semester, I think the most salient advantage for me as somebody who lives about half an hour away from campus was the fact that I saved over an hour every single day. So that aspect of it is appealing. But on the other hand, I think that moving to all virtual classes exacerbates certain inequities that we know exist, but I think aren't spotlighted until this situation arose. And what I mean by that more specifically is Southern next semester is offering a combination of synchronous courses, so courses in which you'll be sitting behind a computer screen for an allotted time once or twice a week, every week, and on-ground courses as well as asynchronous courses. And I think the difficulty of having synchronous courses and on-ground courses and coordinating that within your commuting schedule is difficult even for those of us who have our own cars or who have our own means of getting to campus. So I worry about the students who don't have those options and how they'll make that work.
Is Southern making space available for commuter students so that they aren't having to travel back and forth?
Yeah, they are. And Southern has been on top of letting us know about those resources on campus. And as you mentioned, we have specific spots designated for students who either are in a situation similar to myself or who don't have a home environment that's conducive to learning. I also worry about our students who live further away from campus than I do and who say have 1 or 2 on-ground courses and don't want to pay for room and board but have to make that commute. We'll have to see how those logistics play out.
Alex, I understand you live on campus at Eastern, so tell me what your response is to reopening plans. What have you heard from your university?
Well, first of all, I'm happy that we are reopening. I think it'll be great to get back on campus and get back on the on-ground courses, which is what I prefer. But Eastern is also offering the asynchronous and the synchronous courses with the online options. But it definitely isn't going to be exactly the same as the other semesters of living on campus. They are rolling out a lot more rules just to try to keep everybody safe. So it just means that we'll probably be having less people in the dorm rooms. You won't be able to have as many friends over unless they live in the building. Obviously, everyone's going to be wearing masks everywhere. There might be a reduction on campus activities. So going back, it's bittersweet because we'll be able to kind of start getting things back to normal, but we're still definitely going to have to make sure we're taking all the precautions to keep everybody safe. So,
Alex, do you prefer when the campus closed down in March, or what did you prefer the online at that time, or do you prefer being on campus, having in-person classes?
I'm definitely preferring of the on-campus in-person classes, but I do understand the need to transition to online. So I'm happy that the school is able to try to adapt, and I think they did it pretty well, all things considered. So And I'm also glad that they're going to be offering the online classes for the students that may feel uncomfortable coming in, because I don't think anyone's education should be put on a hold just because the virus is ripping through. So, well, at first I wasn't supporting the online classes. I definitely see the value now that I've taken a few.
You mentioned that there'll be lots of rules to follow. Do you think that the majority of students will follow those rules, especially if they're living on campus? Social distancing can be difficult, I would imagine, in a dorm.
Well, I mean, I think everyone's kind of got these things down pat already. We've all been living with it. It's not like it's new and we're only rolling these rules out at the campus. Everyone in public has been participating in these, and I think that it'll be more of a smooth transition than it seems, just because we've already been living with it for so long. So I don't imagine anyone's going to have difficulty doing it, especially even if it's not for themselves, but out of respect for others and trying to keep everybody safe. So I think that it'll run over pretty smoothly.
So you're optimistic. When I think about my days in college years ago, I also lived on campus. It's more than just going to in-person classes. There's that social aspect. There's being the involvement in extracurricular activities. And I'm just wondering, what are you hearing at Eastern in terms of how those activities will be curbed?
Well, if it's anything to go off last semester, a lot of the activities, we tried to still have them, but they were reduced in attendance. So we would just limit the amount of students that were allowed to be at the activity at a single time. So I think we might do something similar to that, or now that we have the foresight, we can specially design activities so that they can be safe for people to enjoy. So I think that, again, just now that we've accrued some more experience, people will be able to deal with things, and now that they're better equipped with it. So I think that instead of trying to change things to fit the new standard, we'll make things to the new standard so that things can be enjoyed in that new normal kind of way. So in terms of like those big activities, I think the school will be handling that well. And then in terms of the more smaller, like student interactions, I think that the students will be responsible enough to have those at a safe distance and respect each other's, social distancing, 6 feet.
You're hearing Alex Rooney. He's an incoming junior at Eastern Connecticut State University. Also with us on Zoom is Asma Rahimyar, a senior at Southern Connecticut State University, as we talk about reopening plans. Asma and Alex, right now, the infection rate and hospitalizations have declined significantly in our state, but in the pandemic, things can change quickly. We've seen that happen in other states as they reopen more and more. So I guess I'll start with you, Asma. How are you preparing for the possibility that even though campus may be reopening now, things could change fairly quickly? And how will you adapt to, again, if it has to be all virtual for the fall?
I think that there's multiple different facets to just how volatile this situation is. On the one hand, we don't know how this virus will develop as we move along, let alone throughout the course of the semester. And to touch upon a discussion that you guys just had with regards to student behavior, I think that our focus has been on physical precautions and what our campuses can do with regards to distancing and with regards to protocols such as wearing masks and tracing the virus and testing and whatnot. But I don't think the focus has been on just the neurological context of what college students are like, or what individuals from the ages of 18 to 22 are like neurologically, and the fact that we are more prone to act upon impulse or take risks, myself certainly included within that bracket. And so I think the risk for young people is not only, the risk of young people transmitting the virus is not only heightened by that neurological context, but also by the way that we've been talking about this virus in terms of how it's less deadly for young people, and we're not highlighting how asymptomatic people can be and how they can transmit the virus, and how, for instance, if you do get the virus and you don't go through a particularly difficult bout of it right now, it can have long-term effects years down the line. So I think there's compounding factors in addition to the difficulty of just figuring out how this virus will develop that make me concerned as somebody who will be going back and forth from campus next semester. But on the other hand, I'm certainly eager to be back in a classroom. I'm a student of philosophy, and our discussions are not particularly conducive to an online format, even if it's synchronous. But I do have those concerns, and I think they'll be more salient as we continue to progress.
Alex, what's your take if things change, if infection rate spikes and reopening may not happen in another month?
Well, I'm hoping it does happen, but in the case that it doesn't, I think I'm prepared to do the classes online. I did well last semester, and a lot of my courses transmit to online courses pretty well. So I'm an accounting student, and most of the work is done online anyways. So I think that I shouldn't have too much of a difficulty, but I do fear for other students too, because I know that there was some just difficulties, everybody keeping on track. It's kind of it's just a different thing that most people signed up for when you go to school and you expect to have the in-person classes, and then everything gets transitioned to online. It's kind of a shock at first. So hopefully now that the students have had that opportunity and they've done it once before, they'll be able to do it again, so they don't have to put a break on their education.
Asma, before we head to break, I understand you're also a tutor on campus, and I'm just wondering what you've been hearing from fellow students, students who may work other jobs, or they may have children and they're trying to balance, again, their college education.
Yeah, and as you can imagine, there's been a range of experiences within the tutoring center. Most of the students that I work with on a regular basis still come to see me, but we've already established that connection, and we've already identified the areas in which they can improve. But the students who I used to see on a semi-regular basis, or the students who even dropped in once, I don't see students like that anymore. Just because the virtual format is inevitably less accessible. And we definitely worry about those students. I've tutored a mother of 2 young children, and during our appointments, I would hear her son and her daughter playing in the background. And in some respects, that's been convenient for her. And in other respects, it's been difficult. And for my students who work 3 jobs in addition to being students, figuring out the logistics of this is very stressful. And so I do worry, on the other hand, that if we remain virtual, will these inequities continue to be exacerbated?
And Alex, I'll end with you. We know that a college education is not cheap. Again, if there needs to be a switch where the online learning has to happen sooner rather than later, and it may be for a majority of your junior year, do you feel like you're getting the education you're paying for?
Well, I feel like that when you go to university, you're paying for a lot more than the education. You're paying for the opportunities that it provides. So it'd be a shame to pay the full price when you can't go to the campus, you can't experience the activities, you can't make use of a lot of the offices. But I think that they're transitioning that to online too. You can be able to call in, so you can go to the career center, and they can help you network and help you get internships and stuff too. So I think that the network that I've built up at the university is valuable enough for me to stay, even if it is just online courses there, because I'll be able to use those offices from a distance, and then I'll probably be able to get some of those opportunities, if not all of them, through the online motive.
Well, I want to thank Alex Rooney for joining us. He's an incoming junior at Eastern Connecticut State University. Alex, good luck with the coming semester.
Thank you.
Also with us was Asma Rahimyar, an incoming senior at Southern Connecticut State University. Asma, thank you for joining the show today.
Thank you so much.
This is Where We Live on Connecticut Public Radio. I'm Lucy Nalpathanchel. Coming up, we hear from the president of one of Connecticut State Universities, Dr. Zulma Toro, who leads Central Connecticut State University. And we want to hear from you, too. Are you a student or staff member at Central? Do you want to head back to campus next month? You can join us 888-720-9677 or find us on Facebook and Twitter at Where We Live. This is Where We Live on Connecticut Public Radio. I'm Lucy Nalpathanchel. Are you a student at one of Connecticut's 4 state universities, or do you teach at one of the campuses? Today we talk about reopening plans, and we want to hear from you. Do you want to go back to campus, or do you prefer online learning continue? You can join us 888-720-9677. That's 888-720-WNPR. You can also find us on Facebook and Twitter at Where We Live. Joining our conversation now on Zoom is the president of Central Connecticut State University, Dr. Zulma Toro. Dr. Toro, welcome to our show.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
So we're talking about the fall semester. I'm wondering if you could tell us, how many students do you expect to come back this fall, and how many will reside in your dorms?
As of today, we have close to 1,800 students who has made the deposit to live on campus. Because of the situation, we are limiting the capacity of our resident halls. So we will not have more than 75% of its capacity. Therefore, we are expecting the most number of students will be a little bit less than 2,000 this semester. And in terms of enrollment, we are expecting, including undergraduate and graduate students, to be a little bit over 10,000.
And how does that compare to last year? Do you have students who are thinking, maybe I should sit out this next semester because they may not want to deal with a hybrid program, or they don't know what to expect with this pandemic continuing, Dr. Toro?
We are expecting a decline, definitely, in comparison to the last fall 2019. We're expecting a decline anywhere between 7% and 10%.
Did you have to turn away any students who wanted to live on campus this fall, as reopening plans were being considered?
Not up to this point, but Central, as I think our sister institutions experience the same thing. We get requests for students to live on campus until the last minute. So we are at this point okay, but we don't know if we will have to turn some students away. We are hoping we will not need to do that.
Dr. Toro, let's focus on the students who will reside in your dorms. You said that they'll be limited, the capacity, because of this pandemic and the importance of social or physical distancing. But I wanted you to talk through, there's so many plans that you've had to put in place, and so much of what we've heard in our state over the last several months is the importance of testing individuals. So how often will students who live on campus be tested, and what about staff?
Okay, students, before they arrive to campus, should have a test. And if they arrive to campus and they don't have a test, they will be tested. And during the semester, there will be random testing, and those will be selected, as I mentioned, randomly. And the percentage of students that will be tested will fluctuate between 5 and 10% every so often. The resident hall directors will be tested also at the beginning when they arrive to campus at the beginning of the semester, and they will be part of that random testing process.
And what about the element of your students who commute to Central, and also including staff? How will that work in terms of testing those individuals, or the kinds of precautions that they'll have to take coming to campus each day?
Okay. Up to this point, the plan doesn't include testing of those individuals. However, the plan have a number of components that I think are important to mention. The first one is the personal protective equipment. Everyone will be required to wear a mask. We have been working at installing physical barriers that will allow faculty who are going to be teaching through HyFlex, that mean that they will be in a classroom, that those physical barriers will allow the faculty member to be protected as well. In addition to that, we have redesigned the classes and the classrooms to maintain physical distancing, and the 6 feet requirement will be observed. We have signs with instructions everywhere. We are managing the traffic flow within the institution and within buildings. That means that if you enter one way, then you exit a different way. And that is to minimize the possibility of contact or having people closer to you. The cleaning regimen has been changed completely. So every classroom will be cleaned after every class. So we have changed the schedule of classes to allow that to happen. And finally, we are using technology to deal with the situation as one of the measures that we're implementing for safe and healthy and health purposes.
You're hearing President Zulma Toro. She leads Central Connecticut State University as we focus on the Connecticut higher education system, specifically the 4 state universities, and coming up later, the 12 community colleges. You can join our conversation, 888-720-9677, or find us on Facebook and Twitter at Where We Live. Dr. Toro, before I ask you about what you're hearing from students and staff, I wanted to just ask in terms of testing and contact tracing, what capacity does Central have to get the adequate number of tests? And what about contact tracing? Because that's also very important in a pandemic.
In terms of testing, we are collaborating with the system office, and the system office is collaborating with the state. We will have a vendor. I am not at liberty to disclose who the vendor is yet, but we will have a vendor that will be supporting us with the testing.
Oh, that's interesting. So when you say a vendor that you can't mention today, is this something that a vendor that's also collaborating with the other 4 state universities as well? The other 3 state
with
universities?
The system and the state. We are going to join the state efforts in terms of testing.
Again, you can join our conversation, 888-720-9677. Dr. Toro, what are you hearing from students and staff? Are they ready to come back? What are their concerns? What are they looking forward to?
Well, in terms of students, for the most part, our information is that students really want to go back. As in every situation like this, there are some students who has personal circumstances and under those circumstances, they will prefer to be fully online, and we may be able to accommodate, and we will do our best to accommodate those cases. In terms of faculty and staff, you should know that on July the 15th, we will implement what we have called a soft opening. That means we will bring less than 50% of the personnel that serve the support services areas. And we will use that as a way to start the process to get ready for the students to come back. So we are learning as we speak about the situation and the wishes of every individual who is part of the administrative faculty and staff. And as we speak, we are also learning about the desires of faculty. But let me say that there is a group of faculty that believe that the only way they can be effective in educating the students is if they have the opportunity to be on ground. And there are some disciplines that definitely call for more on-ground classes, like the sciences, engineering, the arts, music, and theater, to mention some, and even nursing. So we have a little bit of everything. Faculty members who are eager to go back because of their disciplines or because they believe that they will be more effective on ground. And there are faculty members who like to continue to teach online.
We'll be hearing from a member of the teaching staff coming up in a couple of minutes, but I did want to ask you, Dr. Toro, you mentioned the soft reopening starting next week. We got a question from an employee who asked why the push to bring employees back to campus starting next week. The employee writes, other universities such as UConn have told employees that if they can do their work from home, they should continue to do so. And they go on to say that staff within the Connecticut State Colleges Universities university system have shown they're more than capable of meeting student needs virtually. Why the push to send them back next week, Dr. Toro?
There are some services that definitely will be more effective if we offer them face-to-face in a very controlled way, and that's what we're trying to do here. It's the soft opening. It's, for us, if you will, a pilot to determine what we can do on ground and what can stay online, fully online, to serve our students. At the end of the day, there are three guiding principles for us. One, the health and safety of every individual, the students we serve, the faculty, and the staff. The second guiding principle is student success. After all, we are an institution with a mission of educating our students and our citizens. And there, as it was well described by Alex and Asma, there are some challenges when you are trying to educate the student population. We educate only online. And we want to provide those students the best educational opportunity we can offer. And as part of the college experience, that's the third guiding principle, we want the students to have a round educational experience. And some of them, if they miss a semester, that is a big deal for them because of their personal circumstance.
Well, Dr. Toro, I wanted to bring in a perspective of someone who teaches on campus. Joining us now on Zoom is Professor Christopher Dussault, who teaches Professor of Sociology and Peace Studies, both at Central Connecticut State University and the University of Hartford. Christopher, welcome to our show.
Good morning.
So I wanted you to respond to what Dr. Toro has talked about in terms of reopening, in terms of the importance of safety, but also providing education to students. As a professor, how are you feeling about the campus reopening?
Well, my preference is to not go back to campus, frankly, until there's a vaccine. Public safety, public health should be number one at this point, in my opinion. I would not want to get sick and then get my wife and my family sick as well. And I'm just not confident that we'll be able to hold class in person safely, particularly if the dormitory is going to be 75% full. I imagine the virus will travel through those dormitories and perhaps spread through the school.
We heard Dr. Toro mention that as far as teaching in class, they'll try to erect physical barriers. Face masks will be required. Those options that you still feel unsafe going back to campus, Christopher?
Well, those options will certainly mitigate the spread. But the experience on campus is going to be more than the time within the classroom. Mm-hmm. There's going to be the times passing in crowded hallways. There's going to be the time when you need to use the restroom. There's going to be times in the office suites meeting with students. And congregating people in that enclosed space, I just don't think it's the best option right now. In an ideal situation, sure, we would have all of our classes in person. I don't think online teaching is a substitute for meeting and teaching in person. But I'm hoping that if I have the choice, I'll be able to teach my classes online this semester.
Dr. Toro, I'm wondering if you could respond to what Professor Christopher Dussault has said. If faculty, other staff are not comfortable coming back to campus, will the university be flexible and allow them to continue working either remotely or doing the virtual classes?
Okay, let me also explain that none of the classes that we are going to offer, for the most part, will be above 15 students in the classroom, because we are using for those classes that will have an on-ground component, we are using what we call HighFlex. The HighFlex modality will allow us to have students in the classroom broadcast the class at the same time the faculty member is teaching the students in the classroom. So students can join the class synchronously. But at the same time, we will record the classroom in such a way that students can be part of the class at a later time. Okay? So we are controlling the number of students in the classroom as well. I understand that all of us, including myself, have some concerns about getting sick and being part of the, being infected. I can guarantee that we are doing our best, that we are putting in place measures that have never been there, that we are diligently working towards minimizing the possibility of infections. And let me then talk about the ability of a faculty member deciding or not deciding what modality will be used. As we speak, the Vice President for Academic Affairs is working with the deans after receiving recommendations from a work group as to what courses should be offered through HighFlex modality, because that is the most effective way to offer those. I cannot tell you exactly what courses will be offered one way or the other, but I can tell you that no more than 40% of our offerings will be HighFlex because we don't have the capacity. So that means that most of our courses will be offered online.
Professor Christopher Dussault, how does that make you feel in terms of that they're still trying to figure out what classes will be offered in person versus the virtual? Do you feel like you will have an option come another month?
Well, I don't know if my classes will be among the 40% that will be HighFlex, and if that puts me in a position where I will have to teach in person when I would prefer not to. I have confidence that Dr. Toro and all of the administration are doing their best to mitigate the spread of the disease. But unless there's a vaccine, I don't have confidence that these measures will be sufficient.
You can join our conversation, 888-720-9677. We wanted to hear from people whether they attend a state university or community college or teach at one of the campuses. Scott's calling from Newtown. Scott, I understand that you studied at Western, and what's your plan for the fall?
Currently, my plan for the fall is just to stay employed while I can, if that's even possible, with all the layoffs and everything going on, because part of the reason I'm really not going back is because, we all experienced the online class setup last semester, and it just didn't feel like an actual education per se. It was really easy to just not do your work and kind of get away with the class credits, and that just sort of speaks to what I think how do I phrase that? Sort of speaks to just how everything's going to be during COVID, and that we just won't be able to get a good education, I guess, and also bang for your buck, I guess, would be another thing, because Western is already a less expensive university as it is, but then if you're using all that money and getting, still a sort of half-baked or halfway education out of that, I still feel like, I'm getting not shortchanged. People aren't doing this deliberately. They're doing the best they can. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it's, it's sort of what can you expect, right?
Well, Scott, thank you for sharing your experience and what your future plans are for the time being. Dr. Toro, I'm wondering if you could respond, because again, as a college administrator, I'm sure you're hearing this and you understand people's concerns and the idea that people may sit out because they don't feel like the online education, they're getting what their money is paying for.
I think that is an important and relevant concern. But let me say that during the spring 2020 semester, we moved at Central from offering 5% of the courses online to offering 100% of the courses online. And we did that in record time. I understand as what happened to us happened to our sister institutions as well. I can tell you that we have learned a number of lessons as to how we can improve the educational experience for students who are fully online. Among the things that we are doing, we are offering on a daily basis faculty professional development opportunities for every faculty who would like to improve their pedagogical approaches, their use of technology. And I think that will improve that educational experience online. I think that at the end of the day, we will have offer professional development for every individual that is teaching at Central. The other thing is improvement in technology and the platforms that we are using to deliver the classes. That definitely has improved and continue to improve for Central, and I am sure for our sister institutions as well. So we learn and we are acting on those lessons that we got from the spring 2020 semester.
Dr. Toro, before we run out of time, I have to ask about the international students who may attend Central. There was a new directive issued this week by ICE that presents new challenges for international students, saying that those who are forced to go online won't be able to be in this country legally. I'm just wondering how Central and other state universities are handling that news and how you accommodate those international students.
Let me start by saying we are committed to protect our international students. That means that as we speak, our academic affairs division is analyzing student by student, international student by student situation. And we will work diligently at enrolling those students in high-flex courses. I should say that some faculty members have offered to stay on ground if that will help our international students, which is a commitment that I was not expecting, but I am pleasantly surprised that faculty members are committed to protect our international students. And finally, we are working with the system office to see how we can collaborate with our sister institutions to be able to offer courses for international students to comply with the regulations. And those regulations were the one in place before March. What happened is that during the last part of the spring semester, those were relaxed, and now they are back in place.
I wanted to fit in one more call before we head to break. Rebecca's calling from Mansfield. Rebecca, we have about a minute, if you could go quickly.
I will go as fast as I can. So thank you for having me. I'm a parent of a Central student, and I'm also an educator myself. I know the adaptations we had to make. But in my perspective, in the K-12 setting, we were better prepared and received better professional development to meet the needs of students. My son ended up having to put classes on pass-fail because his instructors were unengaging through distance learning and non-communicative with students, not providing feedback. I realized I missed some of the discussion of PD while I was waiting to be put through, but I'd like to know what kind of recourse, I guess, students have when professors aren't communicating and aren't giving feedback and aren't adapting appropriately to the distance learning environment.
Thank you. Dr. Toro.
I will say that we will have in place what we call a switchboard And that's a group of individuals who will be answering calls and directing those calls to where they need to go for us to be able to take care of this situation. But if that doesn't work, we have in my office a system, and I will encourage any parent, any student who feel that they have not been served the way they were expecting to call the direct line of my office. That line has been working all the time since we have been operating the university remotely. And I can guarantee that as soon as we receive a call with a concern, we have in place a system to take care of those concerns.
Could you share that phone number for people who are listening, Dr. Toro? If not, we can make sure we share it on our social.
860-832-3000.
Well, thank you, Dr. Toro, for that number, as well as the time you've given us here on Where We Live. Again, President Zulma Toro, who leads Central Connecticut State University. Thank you for your time today.
My pleasure. Thank you for the invitation, and we are here to serve the state of Connecticut and our students.
Also, Professor Christopher Dussault joined us, who teaches sociology and peace studies, both at Central and University of Hartford. Christopher, thank you for your time.
Have a good morning.
We know that the state higher ed system also includes 12 community colleges. We're going to get an update on where things stand in terms of those institutions. You can join us too. Find us on Twitter and Facebook at Where We Live. This is Where We Live on Connecticut Public Radio. I'm Lucy Nalpathanchel. We know the state higher education system includes a dozen community colleges. Also, another change coming this fall. Community college students, first-time students, will be able to go to college for free in Connecticut. We're wondering how that's going to work in a pandemic when state dollars are already stretched dealing with this public health crisis. Joining us now on Zoom is Dr. G. Duncan Harris. He's Chief Executive Officer of Capital Community College in Hartford. Dr. Harris, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here.
There's a lot to fit, and we unfortunately don't have a lot of time, but let me start with the fact that campuses are reopening, obviously community colleges, commuter students, but I'm wondering what precautions and guidelines you've put in place to protect your students and your teaching staff.
Yeah, I mean, let me start by saying that I'm an individual that's been impacted by COVID, and I was sick with the virus at the end of March, so I'm uniquely sensitized and would never put my faculty, staff, or students in harm's way at this point. We've actually moved. We have 387 courses that we're planning to offer for the fall. 85% of them will be online. So 329 of those will be fully online. We have 51 that will be hybrid. So those would be perhaps one day on class, one day fully off ground. And then 7 that are fully online. Those would be linked to specialized equipment like our radiological technology. Nursing has certain clinical requirements, et cetera. And so the at the heart of it, we really made provisions to move as many classes as possible fully online and to reduce and flatten the curve.
Well, we're glad to hear that you're doing better, Dr. Harris. In terms of the classes that will be available to be in person, I'm just wondering again if you could talk through, we got some questions about commuter students and you may be traveling in and out of communities. Maybe they have frontline jobs where they're put at higher risk. And so there is that concern.
Yeah. So once again, if you're taking a sociology class, if you're taking intro to literature, et cetera, you should those classes will be online. We've made steps to offer training to the faculty to make sure that they have the materials and the instructional pedagogy to ensure that the learning outcomes are achieved. And so, once again, what we've done here is made sure that the classes that will be offered on campus are those that really necessitate being here due to specialized equipment, et cetera. In other instances, we've removed furniture to ensure that the 6 feet social distancing is in place. All individuals will have masks. We've added PPE and plexiglass around campus. Capital's fortunate that we have one entrance, and so we're not an open campus like many of our sister institutions. And so all individuals coming into the building will be required to wear masks. If they don't, we'll provide them, and so we've been able to acquire PPE. We're in the old G Fox building for your listeners, and we have 5 great elevators, but certainly elevators are a place that we want to make sure that there's social distancing in place. And so there will be no more than 2 or 3 individuals allowed to ride in the elevators at a time. So, soup to nuts, we've really made sure that there are protocols in place to ensure, that folks are safe and that we're mitigating risk.
Dr. Harris, we heard that the state universities are expecting a 7 to 10% decline in enrollment. Is it a different picture for community colleges? Especially, again, I mentioned that this year they're starting the free community college for first-time students.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's occurring nationally is that, consumers are looking at their options, many due to safety concerns associated with dorms and residential situations are really looking at their community colleges in a very different way. And so, we're anticipating an opportunity for an increase in fall enrollment. And as you mentioned, we launched our Promise to Advance Connecticut, our PAC program, which ends Wednesday. So any of your listeners who are out there, we do have enough time that if folks are interested in the program and attending one of our community colleges this fall, that free guarantee for tuition is in place. Individuals have to have graduated from a Connecticut high school, be a first-time college student. So this isn't for returning students or students that have attended elsewhere. They have to complete the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, and then attend full-time. And so they have to be taking at least 12 credits. And provided that those conditions are in place, we would be allowed to ensure that they're accessing the PAC program. And so good for our state. I'm a nutmeg guy. I was born and raised here, and I think that this is an amazing opportunity for Connecticut families.
How will that be paid for in a state where dollars are stretched dealing with this public health crisis, Dr. Harris?
Yeah, well, the system and the Board of Regents made a decision to go into reserves to offer this program. Originally, it was proposed by the state legislature that it would be paid for by the online lottery, and we're aware when COVID hit and some of the other things that was put on hold. And so, but we had made a promise, and there's actually a bill that provides for this free community college and for our citizens. And so the board elected to invest. I don't see it as an expense, but rather an investment in the state and in our families and folks that really need to be in school right now. Many people are out of work. They may have been displaced. They may have been in industries that have been disproportionately impacted by COVID. And now's a great time to be in school, and it could be free for our citizens and our families. And so, very excited about it. I'm glad that our board and the regents, decided to find the resources. Sometimes when things are important, you find the money. And so I see it as an investment.
You mentioned the deadline for that program is this Wednesday. Where can listeners go if they want to try to see if they can get into the PAC program?
Yeah, very easy website, cst.edu/PAC. And that'll take you to a website. You can identify which of the 12 colleges make sense for you to attend, and you can go on and get your application started right online. But we'll do all we can to get folks in by Wednesday. And so once again, we made that commitment. My enrollment team is here and able, and like I said, this is so important for our state and our families. During this COVID and based on the economy and the need to have opportunities for careers and that provide sustainable family supporting wages. And so,
thank you.
So we'll see what happens.
Thank you, Dr. G. Duncan Harris, Chief Executive Officer of Capital Community College in Hartford. We didn't have time to talk about the consolidation plans of the state community colleges. We hope to have you back, as well as Marco Jakin. Thank you for your time. Today's show produced by Tess Terrible. I'm Lucy Nalpathanchel. Thanks for listening.